Good morning, Manish, and welcome to Design Dialogues hosted by Rethinking the Future in collaboration with Publis. This is your host, Bhavya, and today we have the pleasure of speaking with Manish Dikshit, one of the founders of AUM Architects. Just to give a brief introduction about AUM Architects, AUM Architects, based in Mumbai, is a leading global firm specializing in architecture, interior design, and urban planning. With over 200 projects across 10 countries, including UAE, Singapore, and Spain, the firm is renowned for its innovative design and commitment to excellence. Architects blend cutting edge technology with deep understanding of architecture principles. The firm's design philosophy reflects a lot of process transformation where simple ideas grows into impactful and functional designs. Thank you for joining us, Manish.
Hi, thank you so much for the introduction, Bhavya.
So before starting the questions, I would like to inform you that this interview will be published on the website of Publis. So sign up on the Publis website and you will get the access to watch this interview. So shall we proceed with the questions?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So for the first question for the day, can you elaborate on how your studio, AUM Architects, approach to integrating advanced technology in your design and construction process?
Okay, so one of the, we have been an early firm adapting to early implementation of all the technology in right from communication to our softwares that we have been using. So traditionally, architectural firms have been always using AutoCAD as a basic software tool, and then you started getting 3D Studio Max, etc. We have been using BIM in our projects right from, I think, the last 15 years now, from the early inception days to all these additional graphic softwares also for our rendering tools. So it has really helped us, especially because of the projects that we have been doing globally and their requirement, which has been very specific to what kind of softwares we need to use for the projects. So that has helped us to advance and understand globally what is acceptable and what is easy to communicate.
So moving on to the next question, can you share in your project, Edenique, how the semicircular architecture layout influenced the design approach and what benefits or challenges it has presented?
Yeah, it was one of the most difficult project for us because finally, typically within the house, you have most of the walls which are supposed to be straight for your interior furniture, right? So that really caused an issue for us because when we had an acute angle in various portions of the house to ensure that it's not causing a negative space within each room and in each space, that was the biggest challenge because finally your bed, your wardrobe, everything needs to be on a flat surface. You cannot have a curved wardrobe, which is going to be not practical in reality. So that was the biggest challenge. So ensuring the rooms are all doing justice to each other, so you cannot have one. So this was for a family of 4. So having 2 daughters, they did not want one daughter's room to be bigger than the others because of course you're going to have fights between the 2 sisters in the house. So to ensure that both of them are getting equal justice, at the same time, in reality, it was not the same size. But we had to visually do so many small tweaks to the rooms to ensure that it blends perfectly and nobody feels left out. So that was the most challenging part. And of course, like I said, the furniture, we needed to ensure that all those negative spaces are covered perfectly and no space. Typically in India, with the real estate market being so expensive, we need to ensure that spaces don't go unutilized.
So how did you ensure harmony between the tropical divider in the living kitchen area and the overall modern minimalistic aesthetic for the resident?
Okay, so this is again important factor. We realize that you need to have maximum natural light coming to your house. The kitchen being extra long and the living room was a perfect rectangle, we needed to ensure the light from the kitchen comes all the way towards the living room as well. But at the same time, Indian kitchen, we have a requirement where we need to give that kind of a privacy because the mess or the cooking and the sound, we don't want it to be disturbing the guests who are visiting the house. So we thought about a tropical garden which always gives a lot of pleasant feel for a person living inside a space. So that was the whole intention of, instead of creating a typical partition or a divider, we realized why not create a garden within the house so that it breathes within the space.
With mid-century modern elements integrated throughout this project, what role did this play in your style strategy, which was enhancing the design narrative for the young family living there?
So the client made it very clear they did not have anything specific when it came to the style of the house. they left it to us to explore and understand their requirement, how they wanted to transform it to a different style. And from what we were understanding from the client's background and everything, they have always lived in a city of Bombay where mid-century furniture has been a very important focus along with Art Deco. So Art Deco was something we did not want to implement because with already the curved exterior wall of the house, we did not want to implement more curved feature within the space. We did use them, but restricted it to a limit. The furniture, we ensured and made it a point that we give them something which is giving you a feel of a classical, not classical exactly, but something classic, which is going to stay with you for a longer period rather than something very contemporary which could fade away after a few years.
So, with numerous international clients, how does your studio address the sustainability expectations specific to different religions?
So we always believe that every project, every client, there is a purpose of space that they need to do. So understanding their requirement, their cultural background, their usability is something that really plays an important role for us to understand projects which we keep doing around the world. So it could be a real estate company based out of Spain. It could be a IT consultant based out of the US. We understand their requirement, their lifestyle to implement those situations, what they would want in the house, to translate them into a design space.
So, talking a little bit about the BIM journey of your studio, can you explain it how you have evolved the BIM process in your studio over the years?
So very frankly, you can call me technologically challenged in that way, but we have a different department in my office which manages most of the softwares and gets updated with the real-time softwares that are available today. We also use a lot of AI tools in BIM when it comes to implementing our drawings to ensure we understand real time what are the issues that are going to be caused at a later date. So we always like to call ourselves, we are future proofing our drawings that we submit to our project sites so that any issue is catered to and attended today rather than at a later point, because that is the main focal point for us, which escalates the cost of the project indirectly, not a feasible project. So we look at the commercial angle as well.
So, following along for the BIM question, I wanted to ask in terms of future expansion of BIM in architecture industry. So, what do you think that BIM as a approach in architecture industry would help, and how would they benefit architects in future?
It's already helping us tremendously. We understand every small detail, element, material, wastage of products, and situations which can arise, which can cause a disaster. So all of them are understood and implemented today. I think the only advancement in BIM I feel is going to be AI integration, which is already slowly happening in a very subtle way. Unfortunately, there has been a lot of negative discussions happening in different forums about AI, how it has to be used, why it should be used or not used. I personally feel if you understand the meaning of AI, AI is nothing but the data which has been there since a long time, which has been created by us, human beings. If you understand that, you have all your research happening in a fraction of a second to understand what are the issues that could be faced. And it's helping us improve the way we need to do our projects in future.
Talking about another project that is RGB, could you describe how the choice of a dominant white backdrop with blue highlights influenced the overall aesthetic and functionality of that workspace?
So we always believe in the marketing tool, that is the primary colors which are supposed to be used anywhere, right from your logos to your marketing collaterals. Primary colors does not always mean premium, and the client made it very clear, though his company and the kind of money he makes, he is not looking at showcasing it to be a premium for an end user. So we understood that point and we tried to implement the primary colors. That is RGB is basically the red, green and blue. And we use them subtly in different parts of the office to make it a little quirkier, because the traditional company, they were dealing with petroleum products. So they did not want it to make it look like any other company that has been existing for so many years. And instead of getting rid of the corporate culture, they wanted it to look more vibrant for the younger people who are working in the office. So hence the three colors that we chose in different parts of the office to give you a splash of a different feel whenever you're walking around.
So this project emphasizes a lot on its unique curvilinear form to create flow. How did this design approach impact the decision and division of spaces, particularly in maintaining a sense of privacy?
So every area, if you see, there has been an overlap in our design, right from the flooring to the ceiling. So one of the reason to do that is again to stop the visual impact of a restricted space. So when you have an overflowing line and a curvilinear line happening in different areas, different zones, you never are going to feel that, okay, this is the end of my office. So there's always something more to it. So that's always going to give a curious feel to the person who's using it, as well as the visitors who are coming into that office space.
Talking about another unique feature in the project, that is the British-inspired phone booth in the conference room. What inspired its design and how does it support the office functionality?
There is a very funny story. So just a few months ago, we designed the house for the same client. He has been loving the telephone booth that he has been seeing in the UK for quite some time. He wanted us to implement that in his house. Unfortunately, we could not because the design was very specific and could not just forcefully put it in. So when it came to his office design, he ensured and he told us, anyhow, I need a telephone booth. So we are trying to experiment and understand what are the different formats that we can use the feel of a telephone booth within the office space. So it could have been a small corner for making private calls, which can be a soundproof environment. But then that becomes boring. You never would want to talk to anyone in a serious discussion in a restricted space like that. You can do it on a public telephone because of course you don't want others to hear your background noise. But in this case, we realized that the other good space could be a conference room. And the challenge was expanding the telephone booth into a longer space, at the same time trying to make it feel like anybody coming inside should also understand and feel what that space is. So that was kind of challenging. So the only thing we could do is implement it in the exterior facade of the conference room. So it becomes again a quirkier element inside the office and being the central part of the entire office space, viewed and seen from different corners. So even when you are inside the conference room, you don't feel claustrophobic because of being packed walls. So you have some light because of the fluted texture. You get beautiful light even when somebody is walking next to it.
Could you also describe and elaborate on your approach towards tackling different variety of projects from a large-scale urban master plan to a very small project such as residence?
So every project that, like I told you initially, we look at user-centric design. So what it means is basically understanding the purpose of the space and trying to give the client what is there in their mind, but translating it into a reality with a lot of additional elements and suggestions that we generally give out. So it could be a small apartment plan to an office. Like I give you two examples of one semicircular house, an office. The office was a very typical rectangle rigid form where we added curved spaces to merge a lot of boring spaces which are going to be long rectangular passages and corridors. The house which was already curved, we tried to restrict it by giving out straight line format in different zones. Again, to understand the use and the purpose of the space is the most important part. So we had recently another project where the client had in the outskirts of Bombay, it was an Italian company and they had their fashion studio. So they used to manufacture clothing here and they had that studio. So the purpose of the studio was when they have the Italian or the European buyers coming here, when they land in Bombay, to travel 1.5 hours by road into the outskirts of Bombay, where we all know the condition outside some of the rural areas are not the best when somebody is coming to India for the first time. So they wanted them to feel like they are back in Europe as soon as they enter the space. So that was the whole idea of creating a space within that industrial zone. When they come inside, they should stay there for 6 hours because that's where the client is going to do business with them. So that was the idea behind it. So, implementing certain things which are required along with the purpose of the space is what we try to understand from the client before doing anything from a master plan to a small interior space.
Moving on to the last question for the day, Manish. What advice would you offer to aspiring architects about adapting to diverse challenges in the architecture industry today?
So that's a challenge even for us. And I think it's always ever evolving, it's always learning. Never stop yourself from, exploring the boundaries and the world today, because that's where you're going to learn the most. If we were not implementing what is being used around the world, I don't think so we would be where we are today. So please don't ever. So I think this goes to anybody in any field today. Never stop learning, because that's a must for us. And don't shy away and go by the books, typical books that we talk about. Okay, this is not good, or this is not right, and this is wrong. I don't feel there's nothing right and wrong. It is all up to you. What you feel is right is right.
So that was the last question, Manish. Thank you so much for giving your precious time. It was a pleasure to have you here, and don't forget to sign up on the Publish website. Thank you so much.